Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jacob Restituto, and I'm a musician from Northport, New York, and I have a very special guest today. We have Keith Ten4 Sorrells here on the channel. Thank you so much, Keith, taking the time to be on the channel, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. It is my pleasure. So, for the people that are not familiar with who you are, can you give a little backstory on who you are? Tell me a little bit about your story. You've quite the repertoire.
I appreciate it, man. No, I'm born and raised in Orange County. Still live in Orange County, Southern California. So just super chill, and I've just been kind of like into music my whole life. My dad was in a bunch of bands like back in the '80s and stuff, and so I just kind of grew up around music. Started with drums when I was a small kid. Yeah, and then just through that, playing on the worship team at church and stuff.
Oh,
I
cool.
just was like, just always around music, and always in like different bands and stuff. And yeah, and then just through different people that I knew and different friends I had and stuff, I met Oak, the big man Oak. He's he's a super amazing bro, and just someone who's really just, man, he's just, he created a team of producers and signed us all, and like it's just kind of like he's our mentor, and just,
Yeah.
yeah, super awesome. So through that, he's just brought me into the room to some like awesome sessions, and I'm just so thankful. And that's just kind of how I've built up to where I am today.
So, for the people that aren't familiar, who Oak is, can you give a little bit of backstory on who Oak Fedler, right? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Felder,
Fedler.
yeah,
Felder.
Oak. Um, Oak is a producer. He's been in the business for a really long time, but he he's just been killing it, man. Like I think like he's just one of those producers that like I feel like every time like someone's in the room with him, it's just like he creates just magic.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm always learning. I'm just always trying to learn from him, but it's just like yeah, he's just really special. But yeah, he's been killing it recently. He's been doing like pretty much all of Demi stuff since it's been coming out. So Sorry Not Sorry was kind of like the last crazy single that came out, so that was a big one for him. And then also Zaire and Trevor from our production team as well that did that song. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, even you though, like even your list of co-productions that you have is pretty wild. I mean, everybody from, like you said, Demi Lovato to Little Mix to Sabrina Carpenter to even John Legend, and Lizzo. You have all these wild like co-productions.
dude, I know the Sabrina Carpenter and Lizzo stuff was actually, I assisted engineering with Oak on
Okay.
that. Was Oak and Trevor and Zaire as well. But yeah, like the other ones like John Legend and Demi. I mean, I'm just so thankful to be able to just like basically Oak just being like, hey man, like you down for today? And it's like, oh, it's John Legend. I'm like, oh shoot, okay,
So
let's
for people
go.
that aren't totally familiar, can you elaborate what the difference is between producing or co-producing and like engineering a song? So for the people that are like relatively new to the music industry.
Of course, yeah. So producing, you're kind of like in the in the king's chair. You're kind of like running the session. You're building the track. You're like collaborating like with the artist and writer, with how the song's going, and like you're just kind of running the room essentially. And then engineering is where you're actually doing like the scientific stuff, like what's going on. So like Oak like engineers all of his own stuff, but you like usually there'd be like a producer and then like an engineer who's actually like running the like Pro Tool system or whatever they got, and then like actually recording the vocals. But the producer will be like, hey, try this idea, like the one creatively moving everything. But Oak is super unique where he does literally all of it by himself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, to some degree. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just saying like he's sick like that. So
Absolutely. To some degree, I think I'd relate it kind of to like a director seat. I think the producer is kind of like in movie industry, like is the director be like, okay, this is the vision, and then you have the guy actually working the camera, kind of thing.
exactly. And like obviously there's some directors that do both.
Exactly.
Like they definitely always have like people around, and that's how I started. I started as Oak's intern and like assistant engineer. like 2.5 years ago, and then recently he just was my mentor and just kind of like, I mean, before I only knew like literally how to make like pop punk music. That was just what I did. And then he brought me in as an engineer, and he was like, "Oh, you need to learn how to make like pop and R&B music. You know, like let's get this going." And I was like, "Okay." So he kind of taught me just the nuances of that, and eventually signed me. So I'm just so thankful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty sick. So I didn't realize he had a record label. Like, is it considered a record label? So what do you consider like signing you to his man? Like, what does that mean? As a
It's a
manager or?
production company. So like
Okay.
he created the Orphanage, and then
Mm-hmm.
he signs producers to the Orphanage, and he's also considered like a part of the Orphanage. So it's just like a team of
Mm-hmm.
guys. And then so whenever we do a song, whatever, like my partner Alex Nice, it's like Alex Nice or Keith Ten4 for the Orphanage. So we're
Mm-hmm.
all part of that like umbrella.
How often do you find, maybe take COVID out of the situation, but how often do you find you're actually in the studio with these artists versus them kind of just sending in tracks?
I mean, every day. I mean, before COVID, obviously, COVID made it so there's a lot of Zooms,
Of
which were
course.
cool. And the cool thing about Zooms is like you can be doing sessions with people that are all the way like
Yeah.
the other side of the world, and like you might be in the room with the artist, but the writer is like in the UK, and so you bring them in, and it's like wouldn't have been possible before. You would have had to like get them to fly out there and
Sure.
time. So. But yeah, every day usually, and getting back to it right now, actually, we've been doing more in person sessions. But yeah, every day's in the room, so
Really
which
interesting.
is
Because I mean, I know that oftentimes, especially with collaborations, maybe not so much with the producer, but like say for example, it's like I don't know, Justin Bieber and pick anybody, with Ed Sheeran, right, doing a song together. Often, what'll happen is like Justin Bieber is always obviously tracking his vocals, but then they'll send it to say Ed Sheeran, right? It's rare that like. So I was curious if actually like. Little Mix has their own studio guy that they go to, and then they just send their vocals in, and then you produce the songs together. You know what I mean? So
right. And yeah, and Little Mix they came to the studio and like were there for the whole writing process and everything, and then Oak cut the vocals on him and everything. So yeah, I mean like definitely for like features most of the time it's kind of
mhm.
like there'll be a song done, and then if we want a feature we'll like send it off to someone, and then
Yeah.
they'll do their own. So it's mostly for features. But when like an artist wants to do a song, like with us or with Oak or whatever, like they'll come to our studio, and then we'll all do it together.
That's amazing, and I'm curious though. Like, so I find often, and I'd love to know your perspective on that. Like, so often artists will work with different producers for one album, and I'm curious to know why you think that is. And then a follow up question to that is, how often do you guys produce a whole album?
Got you. So I mean, I feel like artists like literally just go around to as many creatives as they can and creatives that they like to try to
Mm-hmm.
get the best records that they can. And there are times where like an artist will really like get connected to a producer or certain writers, and then they will end up kind of like overseeing the project. Like on Kehlani's last album, Oak, Pop and Oak were kind of overseeing kind of like the whole project. And I know Oak did like a lot of vocal production on songs, like even songs that he didn't necessarily produce, but like, Kehlani and him like have a really special connection.
Mm-hmm.
So like producers can be involved in that way. Also like producers can be executive producers of an album where like, they're just kind of like creatively overseeing the whole thing, but like they're not necessarily like doing all the productions, but the artist has a cool relationship with them. So they'll be like, run everything by them, once they get stuff.
Yeah.
But like another artist that we're really close with is Demi. We do like a lot of stuff with her, and on the last album, Oak vocal produced everything on there. And then we had a bunch of songs that we did as well. So it's just kind of like whatever gets the best song,
That's 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think it's every producer does their specific thing very well. So
Right.
Oak may do this very well, and so and so may do this very well, and it's like, and if you're going for that vibe, well, then obviously that person's or they do this very well, and everybody kind of does their own thing very very well. And if you want that vibe, you go with that producer. If you want with that vibe, I could completely agree.
Yeah.
What have you experienced like working with all these artists? what do you find creates the best session? Like, how do you create the best atmosphere that gets the creative juices flowing, creates everybody comfortable, and really just is the best? What have you found is that like thing, you know, or a couple of things that makes a great session?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think definitely just like walking in with a good attitude is probably like most of it. Just like coming in and being like I'm stoked for today. Like today's gonna be sick, and then just kind of like being hyped about it. Because I feel like, I mean, I get nervous before every session, no matter like what it is. Just because like
Sure.
I care about how everything goes, and like I want it to be.
Absolutely.
But just like walking in with the right energy of being like just friendly and wanting to know what the artist is about and everything. And because as a producer, like you're basically like serving the artist, like you're giving them like exactly what they want because you're there to support their vision. So yeah, I think just walking in with that right attitude, and then just little things, just like having like the vibe in the studio going, like cool lights, like cool stuff, like playing stuff really loud, like getting everyone hyped. So I feel like it's definitely a lot about just like energy, keeping it really positive. And then even if like the session like to you doesn't go well, they might like still be stoked and they'll come back. If they like to hang with you, they'll come back if you're friendly and like keeping it cool. So yeah. It's just about hanging.
Yeah, I agree. It totally, like so often music is like we forget that music is like created often with just people hanging out. You know what I mean? Like and like we
right.
as when it becomes a career, I feel like we so often be like, oh my gosh, it's got to be this perfect. Okay, rigid. It's like no, just have fun with your friends, make music, and that's the best stuff that you can really make.
Exactly, and that's something that I learned too, because like it's just kind of like in my mind before I got in the industry, I was like, oh. I feel like it's all like you kind of walk in, you're like, all right, it's time to work. And then work, and then you get the song, but it's like, no, it's not like that at all. It's just like, just come and just hanging out, like just eating food or whatever.
So give me a typical session. What does it typically look like? You get there, you show up, and then what happens?
Right. So you get there, you show up. I work with my buddy Alex a lot. So we just kind of like, chill for a sec, kind of listen to whoever's coming in. Just like make sure we know kind of like what their vibe is. And then the artist and usually a writer will show up and we'll just kind of hang out for, as long as we want to hang out, just like learning about them, seeing where they're at, just kind of listening to their story. And then from there, like we'll just kind of just start kind of like playing chords or just kind of getting a vibe going. And then and in the room, like we say every session, like, like there's no ego here. Like if we do something that's trash, like just tell us to our face. Just be like, you know what, this is terrible, and we'll pivot. We'll do something completely different. Like, so we definitely say that before every session, so they know. But yeah, we just kind of start getting a vibe, playing chords, and then just kind of start building the track. And usually while we're building the track, the artist and writer will kind of get like a vibe and start like doing melodies and like doing different passes and like creating concepts and stuff. So that's usually how it goes. And then by the end of the day, like the full song is done. End of the day, we cut vocals and then it's a record. But it's like not every session goes like that. Like sometimes they already come in with something. They're like, yo, I got this concept. Like, let's do this whole thing. And they're like, all right, cool. So then you start doing exactly that. But like sometimes they have a song written already, So it's different. But most of the time it's like from scratch, like as soon as they get there. And then, just kind of like going throughout the day. Yeah. And by the end of the day, it's done.
It's amazing how, and yeah. Do you always find that you finish at the end of the day though, or are they ones that it's like, okay, we got to come back for this kind of thing?
No, yeah, most of the time. I mean, unless it's, like they want to like tweak it or finish it, or like they have their own vocal production way of doing things and they can take it back. But yeah, most of the time it's written and done and we cut it and then it's good to go.
That's
amazing. We try to be as quick as possible.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Absolutely. So this is actually a pretty cool question from one of the subscribers. They just submitted it in. How do you find it works typically with you, working with new artists or artists in general, even if you worked with them a whole bunch of times, that are from different cultures or have language barriers? Have you ever experienced that?
Have you experienced that? No, I mean, most of the people that come in, like, as far as like language barrier, like already like speak like pretty good English. I mean, I'm sure we'll run into it at some point. But as far as like communication and stuff, like everything's been chill so far. But different cultures and stuff. I mean, like it's just about like just like hearing like where they're coming from and being like, oh, that's cool, and like just kind of. I feel like I learn something new every day about like some random thing. It's like, oh, I didn't even know what it was like in this part of the world or whatever. That's really cool. Yeah. So I feel like it's just kind of like going out and just being like, oh, just learning a bunch of new stuff. That's Absolutely. Cool.
There's a phrase that says, you know, like always try to be the dumbest person in the room. You know, this way you're always learning something, right?
Yeah, and if it's like their culture or whatever they come from is like something you're like super unfamiliar with, just asking questions and like just like learning as much as you can. It's crazy, Absolutely. Bro.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Absolutely. Every day's an opportunity for that. Right. So piggybacking on what you were saying earlier, do you how does it typically work? Like, so setting up sessions, do you guys typically, whether it be you or whoever the case is, you know, producing, do you find that you typically speak with the artist set up, or it's always speaking with their manager? Do you like ever have communications with the artist or the managers usually?
No, it's usually management. Milk and Honey manages like the whole like Orphanage, and they're so awesome to us, and they put everything together, get it all together, and then we just show up and we're like, all right, cool. I mean, sometimes like, you know, like it's all about like building relationships. So like if we have a good relationship with a writer or artist, we'll send stuff back and forth and figure stuff out. But yeah, most of the time it's management and everything, and then we show up and make stuff. Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite writers to work with?
Ooh, that is a good question. There's this writer named Carolyn Pennell who's so awesome. She wrote a lot of stuff on Demi's new album. Justin Tranter also is super awesome. Ricky Manning is someone Alex and I have been working a lot with. Ricky Manning, yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. There's so many different writers, and I feel like it's like every day is a new thing. Chizzy is also a sick writer, a writer named Ebenezer. But yeah, just so many cool people. I feel so lucky to be, because like the music industry, I feel like can either be like really awesome or like really weird, and like you're kind of on the weird side of it, and like you got to be like careful about like what's going on. But luckily, just the environment that Oaks created and Milk and Honey has, like everyone's so chill and so sweet. So,
that's cool. Absolutely. Is there anybody in particular that you worked with that you, obviously everybody that you worked with is, you know, fantastic and everything, but anybody that like really like blew your mind kind of thing in the studio with them?
Ooh, let me think. I mean, hearing Demi like record her vocals like when you're there is just bro. Because like, I mean, everyone obviously knows that she's like, her voice is insane and she's just obviously insanely talented. But like until you're like there in the studio and then she just starts like doing all these crazy runs, and you're just like, oh, okay, you know, like, geez.
Yeah.
Just to hear it live is just, it's just so insane, man. She's a powerhouse.
Absolutely. I can't believe, like, you know, like the fact of like we see these people, you know, on shows and stuff, or on whatever the case is, you know, live performances, wherever they're performing, whatever the case is, we're like, oh man, these notes are insane, you know, like, but that first like time that they're hitting that note, cutting the track is like, that moment to be there has got to be such a wild feeling, in the power of that note, you know what I mean? Like, we all experience them after the fact, but you guys get to experience them all firsthand. It's got to be such an experience.
Right, exactly. And yeah, just a different artist. I mean, John Legend, like when he just starts opening his mouth and singing, it's just like, oh,
yeah,
goodness gracious.
Yeah, he's got such a distinct voice, man. So, how often do you like? So, with producing, do you ever do like the mixing side of things, or does that go to a different house?
For like final releases, it always goes to like a different mixer just to get different ears on it. And you know, like mixers are so talented in what they do, and just like taking what you do and then just like solidifying it and just polishing it. We do like our own mixes for like at the end of the day when we like send stuff out. But yeah, for final release, it always goes to like a mixer.
What have you found creates a really like? What have you found creates the best production? What is a good production for you of a song?
It's a hard, it's a hard question.
But it's a subjective question, not what you think like the industry thinks. What you personally like, what you personally think is a great, production of a song, or this creates a hit, or whatever the case is.
Got you. I mean, for me, I feel like the song just needs to be like the actual written song, like needs to be fire. Like I feel like the production around it needs to serve that, because like if the song is like all right and the production's really cool, like people will hear it and be like, whoa, that's crazy, but it's not going to be a song that like lives on forever. So I feel like as long as the written song is like just really good and just like makes you like feel something, then you're good to go. Then you can just kind of like just build around that. And like a lot of songs honestly don't need much. It's like the song is so good and you're just like, oh, I'll just do just a couple things, and then that's a record. So
yeah, man, it is one of the hardest things I think as a producer. Somebody that makes my own music, and the hardest thing to decide is when to stop. Or like when does this, like, do I release this song and it has just piano, or do I put all this other instrumentation? Where is that finding that line of what is enough is a hard thing to figure out.
Very difficult, and definitely something that like I struggle with, because like I feel like I just want to do a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
But again, I feel like it just comes down to the song and really like listening to what you're doing and making sure that your production isn't getting in the way like of the song. So I feel like that's really big, but like it's just kind of just like listening to it and being like, oh, like can I still like feel the song behind all this production happening? So
yeah, absolutely. Sometimes the production can be too busy and take away from the song. Absolutely,
exactly. Which I love insane busy production. So it's
we all
hard
do.
to not do it, but
we all do. It's right. So it's I find that it's actually really so. I think that great producers can be also kind of go in the same category as great guitarists, great vocalists, great instrumentalists, whatever, how you pronounce it. And in the sense of like, a great guitarist, I talk about this all the time on my channel, is like not somebody that can shred these insane riffs. It's somebody that has the ability to shred those riffs, but knows when to actually do them. You know what I mean? And it's not all about just like, shredding up and down the neck, or vocalists doing all these insane runs. It's having the control of, okay, I can do them, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of it here, but not like the whole thing has to be this insane run. And it's the same thing with the producer, I found. It's the same thing where it's like we have the ability to add all these sick things going on, tremolo effects going back and forth and panning vocals, but it's like, okay, but knowing when to actually use it and when not to use it, I think is such a big important thing of being a producer.
Exactly. And I feel like that just comes with just doing a lot of productions and just being in the room with people and seeing like just like what works and what doesn't. And yeah, like again, like just listening to the song and being like, all right, does this really serve the song, or is this whole like insane hi-hat sequence just sick and I just love it? It's like, okay, I'll delete it. Fine.
Hey, save it for another project, right? There's always the next one. There's always the next one. So how did you? So you kind of vaguely touched on it, but go into however much depth you prefer. But how did you end up getting connected with Oak and even getting? You mentioned like you just kind of people you knew, but like how does that end up even happening?
Dude, so Trevor, who is a part of the Orphanage, super dear bro of mine. We were on the worship team together at our church, and we met through that, and then we like just hit it off and played in a bunch of bands together when I was in high school. And then he started playing guitar during like sessions, like he was like doing session guitar work.
Oh, cool.
And he did some guitar work on Alessia's album that Oak did. So he met Oak through there, and then Oak was like, obviously like, oh, like you're super talented. Like, do you produce? And Oak was like, yeah. And Trevor was like, yeah, I do. And then he showed Oak some stuff, and Oak was like, oh, awesome. Like I I want to like mentor you. Like, I want to see you around more. And
Wow.
he was like, awesome. Okay. And so he started going up there and doing stuff, and Oak ended up signing him. And then Oak wanted to build his own studio house. And he wanted to hire like an engineer to like be his assistant and just kind of like run the house and know how to use the gear and all that stuff. And so Trevor was like, oh, I got a dude. And so he hit me up, and then and then I ended up meeting Oak, and we hit it off really well. And I was his assistant for a while, and then he just built me up and mentored me, and then signed me. So
wow,
that's just kind of how it happened.
So that would be at Sukasa Studios or Sukasa Production, right? Is that the studio house? I guess.
The studios, yeah.
I love that name, man. Sukasa or Mikasa Sukasa. You know what I mean? Like,
right, dude. And it's a house.
It's brilliant.
It's super chill. We just want to make people like just like feel at home and feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, it's super awesome over there.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, what is this? Like you mentioned, like what is? Actually, let me backtrack a little. I was gonna say, how do you find the balance between having to? There's only 24 hours in a day. You only have the artist for a certain amount of time, right? How do you find the balance of being like, okay, we have to get this done, but also like there's a lot of importance in just like hanging out with the artist, because that's kind of where you get to know each other, you become comfortable, you develop a relationship. How do you find that balance of like, okay, we have 8 hours, but also I don't know anything about you really, like let's hang out and have a hot dog kind of thing, in the studio, or, you know what I say? Like it's a weird thing, because there's so much importance in that, I'm curious in your perspective.
Of course, yeah. I mean, like as far as like session timing goes, like it's usually like lasting like however long it needs to take until the song is done. So if that's like 12 hours or 15 hours, then that's that's just how long it is. But I mean, it's mostly just kind of going with the flow, and like if stuff doesn't get finished that day because you've been hanging out, then it's all good, because like you've built that relationship, and they'll come back and you'll finish it eventually. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just kind of going with it, and like the artist like might just like feel like mostly hanging out that day anyways, and then it's just like all right, we might not get barely like anything done, but at least like we hit it off really well, and like are like building that relationship. So absolutely. It's just kind of whatever, just kind of reading it and seeing what is important that day, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How often people in your position are they, like, do they bill? Are they salary, or do they typically get billed hourly?
Producers.
Yeah, you or you said his name is Trevor, right? Your friend. Yeah, like is that typically a salaried position or hourly position?
No, it's actually like per
project
like, that's actually taken. So we'll like sign a contract for if they want to take the song, and then usually get like an advance through that, and then just like royalties after that, radio and streaming and stuff. But no, it's not salary or hourly.
Yeah. Okay, so it's per project then. Very cool. What are some unrelated songs? What's some songs that you wish that you created that were recently released?
Oh. Okay. Frick. Okay, I gotta look at my little Spotify thing. Recently released?
Within the past year.
Okay. So, look. Sorry, sometimes I don't know the names of songs, but they're just like on my
yeah. So gather your list and then come back, because I can't see you just yet. You disappeared because you left the Zoom call.
Oh gosh, my bad, bro.
You're totally fine.
Okay, so I love Sophie. She's rest in peace. She died a couple months ago. But she's just an insane DJ producer from the UK, and pretty much every single thing that she does to me is absolutely amazing. But her and Flume collabed on his last mixtape that came out, and this song called Voices. to me is just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm like, I hear it and I'm like, gosh dang it. I'm just super into that stuff, like the hyper pop and like future bass stuff. Like personally, that's just what speaks to me. And so yeah, like basically anything by Flume or Sophie or Cashmere Cat to me is just absolutely amazing. So
yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that song. Shoot, what else?
How hard do you find it is to produce outside of your preferred genre?
I mean, like I just kind of have the perspective like I'm down for whatever the artist wants to do. So like I'm down for whatever. But I feel like it's good for like as a producer to kind of have your what you personally like, and then if it's applicable, obviously, if it doesn't get in the way of things, like you can kind of sprinkle it in or bring it in. And then I feel like sometimes I feel like when I bring in stuff that I personally like, I feel like sometimes people can be like, oh, that's different. Like I've never heard that before. Like, oh, that's really cool. And so I feel like sometimes like, if you're into some like weird music, like you bring it in, like people can like be like, whoa, I've never heard that before. That's so cool. And they'll feel like it's like really fresh. And then you're just like, yeah, this is what I listen to. So sometimes I try to like sneak it in.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, I try, but like if it's gonna get in the way, then obviously it's like just stick to what's gonna be cool for that
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. All right, so now I want you to go back into the time when you first worked on a song, and you added something to the song, right? And then you heard that song on the radio. What did that feel like for you?
Oh, that was crazy.
I bet.
That was crazy. Definitely for me, the song was "I Love Me" by Demi, and just like going through the whole process of like getting it done and like just like down to the last second, it's like we gotta get mix notes on this, and it's like, oh shoot, and then we finish, and then it's just like, whoa, this is amazing. And then yeah, just like hearing it on the radio, or like my wife is like driving, and then she's like, babe, it's on the radio. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was so surreal because like I just growing up, like I was just like, oh yeah, like all those people like up there, they make all that music that we hear, or like all the pop music. But then it's just like
up there, wherever
yeah,
there.
exactly. Just kind of like like those people. Like I never consider myself like at all like over there, but like it's just crazy how it's just like, oh, like and now it's like on the radio, and like just so thankful, honestly. It's a crazy feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was a part of that. That's so cool.
I bet it's got to be the craziest feeling. What was that? Was that the first song that you had on the radio?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Definitely a crazy feeling, and thank you, Oak, for just letting Alex and I just be there,
Yeah.
just showing up.
It's amazing, man. Every single person I speak to, I think they at least bring up once the importance of relationships in the music industry. It's just like that's all it is, man. It's all relationships, and just you knew Trevor, who happened to meet Oak by playing guitar, and like because you were a good friend of Trevor's, he mentioned you to Oak, and because you were a good person, like he liked you, and it's just like talent can only take you so far, and if you're a jerk, it doesn't. People aren't gonna want to work with you.
Right, and like, yeah, man, it's something that I definitely opened my eyes to. It like it's just because I always thought it was like, oh, just get in the studio and then make stuff and then it's all good. But it's definitely more of like just like, yeah, like just like being cool with people and just being able to hang out. And like, and I'm a super introvert, so like, it's
you don't seem that way from this conversation.
I appreciate it, man. No, I definitely am. So like, it's definitely something that I like am like working through. But like, it's just like what I've learned is just like asking a lot of questions, and just getting to know people.
Yeah, people love to talk about themselves, so
that's true.
That's fun. That's so cool, man. So do you ever see yourself like being in Oak's position one day, like where you maybe have your own studio and then you have artists and producers under you?
Yeah, I mean, I would love. I mean, I feel like Oak set like an amazing example for us with like just him having so much success, and he was like, all right, I want to give back. to like up and coming producers and give them an opportunity, and like because like there's so much talent out there, and like it's so easy for like people coming into it like brand new to just fall into like weird situations, or like just kind of like not have the right connections, but they're like super dope, you know? And so Oak was like, I want to create a collective and like, you know, be able to curate these producers so they don't have to deal with all of that, like, you know, crap, and be able to just work and make records. So definitely one day, like, I'd love to be able to like, you know, keep that going, and based off his example, I think that'd be so awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's like that saying, like, you know, like, or so often we think that, you know, we have to get to the top of the mountain ourselves, but like there's so much room at the top of the mountain, like that just bringing other people with you. It's a lot less lonely.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, like, I don't know, like it's just better to have like people with you, and like, and then other people with like different strengths will make you better, you know?
Absolutely.
And like, you know, if you have a lot of people that you work with, like they'll think of things that you would have never thought of, and then it's like, you know, you're just bouncing things back and forth. So
yeah,
I love it.
So I want to first of all, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time. It's been great so far, and
Dude,
the next
of course,
oh, it's my pleasure. The next section, I want to do a little test something out. Do a little word game with you. We're gonna have a little fun with this. So we're gonna do like the word association game. So it's like, okay. I want to mention a session, and then you say the first word that comes to your mind about that session that you worked with. So for example, like if I say Demi Lovato, you would say, or let's do one you haven't done. If I said Ed Sheeran, you would say, I don't know, talent. I don't know, like amazing singer or whatever the case. You know what I mean? Like. So a phrase, maybe not one word, but like, you know, because you work with so many cool artists, I would love to know, like, or if you prefer, maybe like doing like a sentence on like what the experiences with working with that artist, kind of thing. However you prefer to answer that question, but I think it'd be a fun little, you know, because everybody's different. Everybody brings a totally different vibe. I feel like, you know.
Of course, dude. So, that sounds fun.
Okay, so Lizzo.
Oh, Lizzo. I don't know. I love her. She's so awesome. I just want to give her such a big hug every time I see her.
Okay, like, that's cool. Absolutely. Sabrina Carpenter.
Super chill, super sick. I don't know. I feel like she's just so cool and so fly. And like, I'm just like, dang, I want to be as cool as you want to be.
I love that. I love that. That's cool. Little Mix.
Little Mix. Okay, I'll say Jon Snow, because one of the Little Mix members, she was like, just like, she has the Geordie accent, or she can do it really well, and so like she was just talking like Jon Snow the whole time, and it was just amazing.
That is amazing. That is pretty amazing. Demi Lovato.
Oh, I mean, what is there not to say about Demi? Demi is incredible. I'll say incredible.
Yeah, I would say raw talent too. Just straight up raw talent.
Heck right? Yeah.
I mean, at least based on what the way you've spoken, it's just like there's just some artists that just have, and well, every artist I'm sure you work with is talented in their own specific way. There are just some artists that have these wow factors, I feel like, you know what I mean, and that's what makes them who they are, you know. And everybody, I guess, you know what it is. I guess everybody has it in their own specific way, but some are more like apparent than others. You know what I mean? Like it's just the insane vocalist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then with her, just I mean, like Demi, like personally, like just being like so open about everything, like, and you know, just like being so brave about talking about all this stuff. I mean, Demi's just incredible. And just
absolutely. Awesome. So what is something that you would have wished you knew as a producer, specific, like let's talk before we go into that one, what's something you wish you could have told yourself, you know, you wish you knew back when you started this career, that you know now that you kind of were like, I wish I knew that at starting off?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
We can come back to it if you want to think about that one.
No, it's just because it's like, it's just definitely so crazy going from like just like, you know, making pop punk records at home, and then it's just like, and then it's like, oh, R&B and pop music, this is crazy. That that's a really hard question.
All right, let's skip it for now.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. As a producer, let's talk, because I, you know, like I said, I make my own music, and I've learned so much about making music over every single song I make. I learn something new, right? So specific tech. Let's talk tech for a sec. You know, like whether it be like, you know, you know, side chaining the bass to the kick drum for, you know, whatever, 45 milliseconds or whatever the case is, you know, just throw random things, adds a sick effect. Like, what is something that you know now that you learned, you know, that you never knew before when you first started, and like that you now use like all the time?
Ooh,
tech wise, like production wise.
I definitely learned a lot from Oak and just seeing everything that he does. One trick that I think is really cool that he has for vocals is he has like his main vocal, and then he busts it out to a reverb, right? And then he'll actually sidechain the reverb to the vocal, or no, technically I guess the vocal to the reverb, and he will have the reverb ducking whenever the lead vocal is like active, and then, you know, it'll be like, oh, sing, 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 and then the threshold will come back up, and then the reverb will be there. So when the vocal is actually singing, it's super dry and in your face, and then when it releases, it's like all the reverb, and I was just like, that's so sick. So
I love that. Absolutely, it's a brilliant idea, and especially so for people that aren't super familiar with anything that we just talked about.
Right.
Essentially, what you're doing is you're taking reverb, which is that natural like cathedral sound you typically like hear if you go walk into like a Catholic church or something like that. That's reverb, and then you would sidechain it to the vocals, typically through a compressor, you know, on a bus, like he said. And what that means is every time that when the singer is singing, the reverb comes out, and as soon as the singer stops singing, the reverb comes back in. You kind of just allow it in. But like you said, it adds a really cool effect, and it gives, you know, the less reverb an artist has, typically, you know, it's a lot more. They feel like they're closer to you. The more, you know, the more reverb, the more space and stuff. So it adds a really cool dynamic effect like that. That is a cool one. I like that one.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I was like, I would have never thought of that. That is amazing.
That is cool. How often? So I was speaking to somebody else recently, and they were saying that like every vocal they ever record is always layered 3 times, even if it only sounds like one vocal. Do you guys always layer vocals?
No, I mean, I feel like we don't take like a singular approach to anything. Like we just kind of see what it needs. I mean, most of the time, like, you know, just as a general way that we do it, I guess, like usually vocals, it's like just for like one lead, and then, you know, some ad-libs or BGVs, and then usually the chorus has like a couple lead stacks with the lead, and then all the BGVs stacked on it and stuff. So that's just kind of like how
BGVs is quite the term. I love that one. I haven't used it. Obviously, background vocals is what it means, but it's a fun way to say it. BGVs, yeah, you sound cool when you say it.
But yeah, that, I mean, usually the chorus is where we stack a couple times, but I feel like less is more. Usually that's just what we found. Like, just, you know, if the song is good, then just one vocal. And
wow, yeah. Less is more. Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point.
Yeah. You know what? And that, back to your question, that is something that I feel like I've learned, and I wish I would have known before. Like, less is more for everything. And like, I feel like I'm like continually learning that. Like, as long as like in the production in particular, as long as like the sounds are cool that you're picking, like you don't need to do much. And it's super easy to do a lot, but less is more. I feel like that's something I definitely learned a lot of recently. So
amen to that, man. Absolutely. I think that one of the things I've been talking about it for a while. One of the things I need to do is I've been having this idea of doing like the 12-12-12. Like, it's like the 12-track album of only 12 tracks allowed on it, in the sense of like, you know, back when the days when they had like the 12 tracks or the 8 tracks, like that's all you could record,
right? You
know, and it's like, and it's really hyper focused. Like, I can only have one guitar, I can only have one piano, I can, you know, whatever, 12, or however I want to use the 12 tracks, because like that would really make you focus, or me focus, on the songwriting. And like everything I'm doing in there is super intentional, rather than, oh, let me just have this pad synth in the background to make it sound a little full. You know, it's like, no, I don't have room for that anymore. You know, so everything's got to be really killer. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And like I feel like limiting yourself in general will kind of make you like more creative. So yeah, I feel like anything you can do to create those limits, and then you'll have to make intentional decisions.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. That's so cool.
I think it's something I want to do, or something like that, or at least a couple songs just like that, you know. But
Right.
I think it's such an insecurity that especially newer artists struggle with. It's like, oh, maybe my music isn't that good, so let me just add all this stuff, you know. So and it's like,
Right.
the more
Yeah.
I add, the better it gets, which is totally untrue.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like it could definitely sound sick, and you're like, oh, like the beat's crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, like, I feel like it just comes down to the songs, like especially for like longevity and charting and all that stuff. It's just got to be a song that resonates.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's totally true. Less is more, and that is such a profound thing that so many people, including myself, often always struggle with.
oh yeah, all the time. And then it's just like, you know, all right. Sometimes we have to be reducers. We're producers.
Reducers. Amen to that. Wow, that is good, man.
Sometimes we do a bunch of stuff, and then we come back later to, you know, just like polish it, and we're like, time to put on the reducer hat. And
I love that.
delete.
That is such a good phrase, man. Oh my gosh. Well, like I've heard the phrase, like, you know, you're a studio engineer, not an engineer. You know what I mean? Like use your ears, use your ears instead of your eyes, because so often we mix, we'd be like, oh, and the vocals I got to bump 2K. You know what I mean? Just to get them a little brighter, or whatever, or beefier. You know, but it's like, well, maybe if they don't need that, use your ears instead of your eyes. You're an engineer, not an engineer. But dude, a reducer, come on, man.
Reducer.
Oh, that is funny. That is so funny.
Hilarious. Yeah, we like Trevor and I always joke about it, just like, all right, time to reduce.
Yeah, that is hysterical. That is so funny, man. I love that. So, like I said, I do want to say thank you for your time. I want to be respectful of your time, because I know that you're a super busy guy. Yeah, man, absolutely. So, I always say on my channel, the best way to support my channel is by people checking out my personal music. What's the best way for people to support you and what you're up to these days?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess if they want to like follow my Instagram and just kind of like, if they want to see like what stuff I'm putting out or like what I'm doing, they can give me a follow.
Sweet, yeah. So the link is already in the description to Keith's Instagram, so you can just click that right there, and then boom. Absolutely, man. Yeah. Anything exciting that you are working on that you are allowed to talk about?
Ooh, that I'm allowed to talk about. I mean, I think a lot of talk about Oka's brought Alex and I in to work on some of Jared Leto's new stuff. So that's been dream come true.
That is as Jared Leto, or as like 30 seconds. As 30 Seconds to Mars?
There's a band that I absolutely love so much, and like literally like all of high school I literally listened to them and would play along on drums to all their songs, and then it's like, oh, you know, you guys want to work on this? It's like, yes, we do.
That is cool.
I've been super hyped about that.
Did you see that documentary that they put out like, I don't know, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was This Is War album, and that whole process.
Yeah.
Nuts, man.
That was nuts.
Through, man. But I mean, he's killing it. I mean, the new Justice League that came out on HBO. I mean, it was such a better version. But just the ending with him in it was so good.
That is, and you gotta like you're in the studio with these guys, right? You gotta like hang out with them, meet with them. It's not like you're just, you know, chatting with them through Zoom or getting their stuff, right?
Well, with Jared, it has been through Zoom and like just sending stuff back and forth. I mean, he's so busy, you know. But I mean, one day, hopefully, like he'll be able to come by and we'll be able to just vibe out together. That would be incredible.
The last question I have for you, let's continue this train of thought, is what is that experience like? You know, somebody that you've been, you know, a fan of forever. The first time you either meet them in person or the Zoom call, what do you be like? Hey, nice to meet you. Like, what do you even do? Like, how does that, you know?
I mean, so that it's most of the time with that, it's definitely Oak running the Zoom, and then Alex and I are there, like we're like there because we're part of the project. So it was definitely a lot of like, you know, they're talking back and forth, and it was just like, we're just kind of next to him. So it's just kind of like, and he's someone that I've watched like all of their music videos and everything. Like I love 30 Seconds to Mars so much. And like, so to just like, but at the same time, you're just like talking to him and he's just a cool guy, you know? So you're just kind of like hanging out and you're like, oh, he's a cool guy. Yeah. Like I want to hang out more. So it's like crazy at first and you're like, oh, there's a cool person, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Well, that is quite the way to wrap up this interview, man. Like I said, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time. But if you could actually hold on for 2 seconds, I want to say thank you to everybody that has watched so far in this interview, the whole thing. If you're just joining, whatever the case is, or if you're watching after the fact, thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend with me and Keith. It's been a pleasure having you guys. Absolutely. So stay tuned for the next one. I will see you guys in the next video. Definitely go and check out Keith's stuff if you want to check